Hello, everyone, and welcome to the launch of the PMP Exam Agile Booster Course. I'm Cornelius Fichtner. Thank you so much for joining me today. Now, the Agile Booster Course, we created this course because our statistics show that PMP students are up to 32% more likely to get Agile questions wrong in our exam simulator, and therefore probably also on the PMP exam. And those 32%, they can really spoil your chances of passing the exam. I'll go more into the details of our statistics in just a minute. Let me begin with the quick agenda here. I want to look at why the booster course. We'll take a look at a few questions and answers from the PMP exam. We will talk about the PMP exam content outline. That's important to understand. Then we'll take a look into the Agile Booster Course. And then at the end, I also have a little bit of study material, study plan, recommendation for how you can go about to prepare properly for your PMP exam. In between, I'm going to give you a number of lessons learned that I have gathered from people who have recently passed the exam, focused primarily on Agile lessons learned today. So let us get started. Why an Agile Booster Course? Well, the answer is quite simple. Our statistics show that, on average, PMP students need it, right? PMP candidates really have a much harder time with Agile concepts and Agile questions in our exam simulator. Here are just two questions out of our simulators. Question ID is there, and you can see that the first question, 72% of ACP students get that one correct in their first attempt, but only 48 get it correct for the PMP, and the same thing goes for the second question here in this list. It's actually even worse. It's almost 50% of PMP students who got that one less correct, or half of PMP students than the PMI ACP students. Let me show you the overview of all the questions that we've analyzed. So we've looked at 250 Agile questions in our exam simulator. And so what you see here is 10 bands of green and orange, and each of these bands represents about 25 questions. And you can see that the green ones, that's the Agile students, and the orange ones, those are the responses from the PMP students. And as you move further to the left, you can see how the difference is. So on the far left there's a big gap between orange and green, meaning PMP students get this one or these 25 questions. There's a big difference. And on the far right, they're quite close. And the reason for this is really quite simple. It's this here. On the left, we have the harder questions, and on the right, we have the easier questions. So that means that the easier the questions are, the narrower the difference gets. That's just to be expected. But let's take a look here. Right, this is the difference, right? And this is really where the problem lies. And if you are on the right, if your PMP exam only had easy questions about Agile, there would not be the need to have this supplemental Agile Booster Course. But because you have a big band, you have easy questions, medium questions, very hard questions on your PMP exam, and then you're going to really fail, right? Let's take a look on the left-hand side there. About 18% of PMP students, only 18% of PMP students get the really hard Agile questions correct. So that's 72% of you who, you hurt yourself in your PMP exam because you do not have the necessary Agile background, Agile experience, and potentially Agile training. And this becomes clear also in this lessons learned here, where the student says quite clearly here, PMI is really trying to measure how much you are able to apply the knowledge you know in real life scenarios. Okay, so your experience, your knowledge needs to be applied to these agile questions on the PMP exam, and that's what the big crux is there. Okay, and since so many PMP students are lacking that experience, well, we're seeing this here, right? We're seeing this big difference here. Okay, so if you're interested in the Agile Booster course, let me get this out of the way at the very beginning as well. Please do visit pm-prepcast.com/booster. That's pm-prepcast.com/booster, where you can read everything about the Agile Booster course and order it as well. Okay, so much for the first section. Why is an Agile Booster course necessary as a supplemental product? Simply because, well, our statistics clearly show that PMP students need it. Okay. So then let's take a look at a few of the burning questions that students always have lately about the PMP exam. Here we go. The first question is, at the moment, should I use the PMBOK Guide 6 or the PMBOK Guide 7? Because the PMBOK Guide 7 was published on the 1st of July in 2021. My current recommendation is this. If you are planning to take your exam in 2021, then use the PMBOK Guide 6th edition. If you're planning to use it in 2022, use the 7th edition. PMI clearly states that the 6th edition is not outdated, even though the 7th edition has come out. PMI, however, has not made a clear statement as to what is going to happen in 2022. And until then, this recommendation stands. In fact, I have a complete, about 45-minute long webinar where I talk just about this question, and we go through it. Next question, is there a new exam content outline? Yes, there is, and we're going to talk about the ECO a lot more in a little bit. What is the biggest difference if I take the exam after the 2021 January 1st change? Well, the exam has gone down from 5 domains to 3 domains, and it has 50% agile. Keep those two things in mind, because later on, both of these are important to understand what the content is of our Agile Booster course. Now, let's begin with those 50% agile. So PMI states 50%, that's half of the questions on the exam, are going to be about agile. However, here is what people say about the PMP exam. I would say 60-40 of agile. Agile is 60 to 70%, probably 75 to 80% hybrid agile. So even though PMI clearly states, hey, the exam is 50% agile, lessons learned we get is like all the way up to 85% of my exam was agile. That is clearly not true. Okay, the exam is 50-50, but because PMP candidates with little agile experience, they just get surprised by the agile questions, and it seems like it's a lot more. So you can see from these lessons learned here how difficult it is for PMP candidates to get their head around the fact that half of the exam is now agile. The next questions I get is this one here. Is the current exam more difficult? Yes, of course it is more difficult, because 50% of agile is in the exam now, and PMI also added a new business environment domain where you have to understand things that are more related to business, the business of your project, like making sure that your project is aligned with the strategic objectives of your company, for example. Moving on, how many questions does the current exam have? It has 180 questions, and you have 3 hours and 50 minutes. Okay. Next, lessons learned here. Read the agile part and the PMBOK of the PMBOK guide and the tailoring and hybrid projects. This particular lessons learned is focusing on the PMBOK guide 6th edition. So if you're using the PMBOK Guide 6th edition, which I recommend, probably even in 2022, I will make this recommendation, depending on PMI says, do read the tailoring and the hybrid section, and each of the knowledge areas also has an agile part in it. All right, so this is end of part 2 here in my presentation about Q&A about the PMP exam. Then exam content outline. Now, this is a big one, okay? Because many people feel that the PMP exam that the PMP exam is a test of the PMBOK guide, and that's just not the case, okay? So let me clearly state, the PMP exam is not a test of the PMBOK guide. Instead, it is using the PMBOK guide as a reference to define the question. Rahul asks in this regard, does the new exam include ITTOs? No, Rahul, the ITTOs are no longer necessary in the sense that they were previously. Previously, you really needed to know and have almost memorized the ITTOs. Now you have to be able to answer questions that are experience-based and scenario-based. Okay, so in the traditional plan-driven section, the ITTOs are needed to understand conceptually what's going on, and Agile doesn't have ITTOs in that way that the PMBOK guide has. All right, so what is the ECO? The ECO defines and describes what's on the exam. It's the syllabus of the PMP exam. If it isn't inside of the ECO, then it will not be tested on your exam. We have domains, tasks, and enablers. We're just going to take a look at the domains here today and talk about those. So there are 3 domains in the PMP exam today. The first domain is people. 42% of the questions on the exam are going to be about the people domain, 50% of the questions are going to be about the process domain, and 8% are going to be about the new business environment domain that I mentioned earlier. Okay, so after a while, once this new exam went into effect, we did analysis on our exam simulator, and we found that, let me move on here, there are 2 areas where students struggle on our exams in the simulator, and that is on Agile and on soft skills. Okay. Obviously, we all started scratching our heads and said, so why are they struggling, right? And Calvin just asked how to prepare for the hybrid type questions, given there are so limited practice and textbook and hybrid project management. The best thing you can do, really, Calvin, in this sense, is to use an exam simulator that has agile and hybrid questions included and learn from that. More about that later on during the closing when I talk about the tools that you can use in order to prepare. So why are students struggling? Why do we see this agile soft skills? Why in these 2 areas in particular? Okay, well, agile is easily explained. Okay, and this is the most significant difference between the previous and the current ECO, right? That's the project management approaches covered. In the previous exam, 100% of the questions came from the traditional predictive waterfall type project management approaches, the one you see here on the left. So 50, the light blue thing, the turquoise that you see on the left, that was 100% of the PMP exam, okay? Now, 50% will be agile and hybrid. So we have the predictive on the left and we have the hybrid on the right. But this is actually a misleading slide here, because this is what it truly looks like. Okay, before the change, the questions were only about plan driven. Okay, that was 100%. And on the right hand side, the amount of plan-driven is still the same. So you still have to understand and know exactly the same amount of information and project management knowledge and experience that you had before. And you also have to know Agile on top of that. So practically, PMI doubled the amount of knowledge needed to pass the PMP exam. No wonder you are struggling with Agile, right? This is the primary area where our booster course will support you, right? Many training courses out there have plan-driven training courses, and that's what the focus is, but Agile may be a bit slim, and that's why we are doing this. Okay. I think more than 50% of the questions were Agile. Mohammed, again, PMI in its own rules and regulations says 50% of the questions on the exam are Agile/hybrid, and that's what it is, right? Could it be 51, 52? Of course. But yeah, I don't think that is going to be that much of a difference. Andre says, I have an exam tomorrow morning. I passed 3 out of your full exams, 75. Yeah. Last minute preparation. Andre, don't worry about it. At this point, when I look at your numbers right here, statistically speaking, with 75% in our exam simulator on 3 full exams, you should be able to pass your exam on the first attempt. Okay, that's just what our statistics say across the board. Okay, so this is the big issue here, right, when it comes to Agile. This explains why we have Agile. Okay. Wait, let me go back. Calvin asks, how much Agile knowledge is needed to pass the PMP exam? Will Agile practice guide alone be enough? PMI ACP market textbook is so much overwhelming. Yeah, this is exactly why we decided to create the booster course, right? In order to help you understand on the right-hand side, the top box right there. So the booster course is a great way of getting everything that you need where we see people have troubles and where people are struggling. Okay, so that explains the left side, Agile, right? It's just so much more that you need to know. But then we were scratching our heads about the soft skills. Why are students suddenly struggling about the soft skills on the PMP exam? Because soft skills have been on the PMP exam forever, right? Even when I took my exam back in 2004, I think, I had soft skills on my exam. So why is it suddenly that we are seeing a drop in soft skills knowledge where people are struggling? Okay. Well, the reason for this, we realized, is because the exam content outline has changed. Let me show you. This here is the old PMP exam, where the exam had a very strong focus on the processes, okay? Initiating, planning, executing, monitoring, controlling, and closing. That was what you needed to know for your PMP exam. So there was a lot of that. Process groups were studied, knowledge areas were studied. Earlier on, Rahul asked about the ITTOs. The ITTOs were studied. So a lot of technical focus in the training that was going on in the past. This here is the current PMP exam content outline, right? Entirely different structure. 3 domains: people, process, business, environment, right? The role of the project manager in this scenario now as the integrator between these 3 is significantly emphasized. The ECO puts an enormous focus on the people domain. It stresses the importance of the project manager's interpersonal skills and her or his ability to lead the team towards the project success, right? The ECO also makes a strong connection between leading a project, using project management best practices, while delivering the intended business benefits of value. Okay. Calvin asked, are there continental differences, full-length exam and PrepCast? No. Calvin, we have one PrepCast exam simulator, and it has 4 exams. 7 used to be in the past. So in the past, we had 7. Now we only have 4. So that may be, you may be looking at an older page, an older marketing message that we had sent out. So today our exam simulator only has 4. So here we go. This is the reason, right? Why do people struggle on the left? Agile. Well, it's new. You really have to now know your Agile stuff in order to pass the exam. And on the right, why do people struggle with soft skills? Greater exam focus, different exam content outline, bigger focus on you knowing your soft skills and your interpersonal stuff. Our booster course aims to close the gap in your knowledge by offering lessons covering exactly the topics where we have found that you are struggling. For example, we included the role and competencies of the project manager to help you with the interpersonal things, a benefits realization that brings in the third new domain, business environment a little bit, managing project knowledge, and of course, agile and hybrid project management approaches are really, really big. And you'll see that in just a second, because now we're moving on to what is inside the Agile Booster Course. Okay. Well, thank you, Mohammed, for saying that. The best thing really makes me ready for the exam is the PrepCast simulator. You are welcome. Okay. And wait, there's another one. Rahat says, I purchased it and I was able to pass. Now I'm preparing for the ACP simulator here. Do you think that's enough? Well, it has been enough so far, Rahat. So we have just, I believe, 4 exams in this exam simulator, if I'm not totally mistaken. But that's the same amount of quizzes or exams that we have in the PMP as well. So what is in the Agile Booster Course? In total, there are 22 hours of training in the course. We have 34 video lessons on Agile, a total of 14 hours, and those are required or recommended. So that's what the R and R means there in parentheses. We have 15 general project management skills lessons about interpersonal skills and all that. So that's 5 hours. We have labeled those as optional. And we also have 5 audio interviews with experts from around project management. And those, again, are more about skills and business environment. Again, that's why we labeled those optional. So this is the Agile Booster Course. That's why Agile is required and recommended. There are also a few bonus items that you get along there. Okay, what are the areas of focus? Let me tell you about what the areas of focus are in the Booster Course. So first of all, we want you to be able to be cultivating the Agile mindset and applying servant leadership. The understanding of Agile team member roles is so important. This is a lesson learned that comes up again and again. Calculating velocity and determining the project completion schedule is a question that always shows up on the PMP exam. You need to be able to interpret burn-up charts and burn down charts. They are a big Agile topic. And we will also be reviewing the basics of Agile via an Agile project management overview, as well as a review of the Agile manifesto. And then the last bullet point, that's why it is in turquoise highlighted here. This is really a big topic on the exam, Scrum. Okay, if you do not know Scrum, you will have a hard time with questions on the exam, because so much does indeed come from Scrum. And also included is a certificate of completion where you get, I think it's 22.5 credits. So it's either 22.5 PDUs or 22.5 contact hours, depending on your certification status. Okay, so that's kind of it, right? There we go. Mohammed says, I have studied the 14-hour video and practical. Is that enough for starting the Agile simulator? I think so, Mohammed. Go for it. You will only know once you really get into the questions whether you are ready. Rahul asks, are we obviously covering Agile, XP, Crystal, etc.? In our full-blown Agile PMI ACP course, we do look at these. In the Agile Booster course, we do not, because we have been told that XP, Crystal, and those little, fringe type of Agile methodologies are not really on the current PMP exam. So they are not included here. So let me show you the curriculum so you can see what's in the course itself. So what we decided to do is we decided to start out the course with the soft skills. Okay, so the first lessons that you're going to get is a little bit about the PMP exam, about the PMBOK guide. Then we'll dive into the role of the project manager. Remember, these are all the soft skill areas where we find our students are lacking. Okay, and as you can see here in this column, these are the ones that we have labeled as optional. Okay, and then below this we have a really long list of 34 Agile related, there we go, 34 Agile related lessons. And these are, as you can see there in column H again, either recommended or required. And then we close everything out with the expert interviews where we interview, let's see, I think business acumen, that's Elizabeth Herron. This here is Oliver Lehmann. Suzanne Matson is here. Emotional intelligence, I think that's Dr. Margaret Maloney, if I'm not mistaken. Oh, and this is also from Dr. Margaret Maloney. So we do talk about, those interpersonal skills that you as a project manager need, where we find that people are having trouble. And if you want to see this in the system itself, so this is when you get in, you go and this is the certificate that you'll get at the end that I was testing out yesterday, making sure that it works. And this is the list of lessons, and you'll be able to see, here when you go into the role of the project manager, it tells you exactly, oh, this is an optional video, I don't have to watch this. But once you get into here, Agile frameworks and methods required. So these are our recommendations here. Yeah, so this is it. This is for the content of the Agile Booster course. Okay. Alan asks a question in regards to how the exam goes. Is it possible to alter the size of the font on the PMP exam? Alan, I do not know. I do not think so, right? This is a question that you may need to ask Pearson VUE or PMI directly about that. Okay. Then let us, let us move on. Next slide. Oh, yes. If you want to get the Agile Booster course, please do stop by at pm-prepcast.com/booster, where you can read more about the Booster course, rewatch this video if you would like, and also place your order. One more lesson learned that I have here for you. The exam, this person says, is full of Agile questions. No Scrum and Kanban and retrospectives, leadership style, implementing or starting Agile, moving from predictive to Agile. So as you can see, and this is it. When I reviewed the lessons learned from students in the last 6 to 9 months or so, Agile was dominating the discussion. Everybody is and was talking about how important Agile is and how difficult it is and how much there is of it. Okay. All right. And now, so much for the Agile Booster course in itself. Let's take a look at my study plan and materials, okay? With this here, I want to give you sort of a guide of how to prepare properly for the PMP exam. And here it is. Yes, it's an empty slide because I want to start outside of the actual training. As the foundation for your PMP exam, you need your experience, right? You need 36 months of active project management experience before you can even take the exam. So as the foundation for this slide, underneath it, outside of it, imagine that it says your project management experience, where you have actually managed and led an exam, led a project. There we go. Okay, and then on top of that, in order to get ready for the exam, you want to do your PMP exam studies. How you do this, that depends on your needs. Are you taking a full 5-day long in-person class, or are you using my PM PrepCast video lessons or another course? Are you studying any type of books? Are you reading? This is depending on your needs. We have a full article about how to create a study plan for you on our website. So I'm not going to go into details here, but this is a study approach, studies that are tailored towards your needs and the way that you need to prepare for the exam. I also want you at the same time to look at the PMP exam content outline. Your instructor should actually talk to you about the importance of the PMP exam content outline and explain it to you. And if they don't do that, ask them why they are not, because it is the most important document that you need to understand for preparing for the PMP exam. After all, you wouldn't play chess without reading the rule book, right? So the PMP exam content outline is the rule book of the PMP exam. So you definitely want to read it and understand it. On top of that, you are going to open up the PMBOK guide. As I said, in 2021, 6th edition, and in 2022, probably the 7th edition. The PMI is still very silent on this topic. Plus the APG, the Agile Practice Guide. Okay. And the question here that Rahul says, does the Agile Booster course tailor to cover the full contents of the Agile Practice Guide? No, Rahul, the Agile Booster course is not a replacement for the Agile Practice Guide. Okay, so it's not a replacement for the guide. You have to read the guide. The Agile Booster course helps you to cover the gaps that we see in the exam simulator. We know exactly what topics and what questions people have problem with. And so we have designed the course to cover those topics in particular. Remember at the beginning, we had all these difficult questions on the left-hand side where people were really struggling. So a lot of the topics come from there and from the middle where we have, you know, the medium hard questions. So that's what the booster course covers right there. Yes. And now that you have all of this, right, you want to use a PMP exam simulator to apply all your knowledge in terms of exam questions. And this is then also the moment where the Agile Booster course comes into play, together with the exam simulator. I didn't want to put it the other way around. In my opinion, it's really, you know, you want to probably get the Agile Booster course before you go into the exam simulator, but that depends, right? Some people say, oh, I'm just gonna try the simulator, and if I fail in Agile, okay, then I'm going to go for the Agile Booster course. My recommendation is really do it the other way around. Get the Agile Booster course first and put it in between the PMBOK guide and the exam simulator there. But some people, they choose to do this differently, right? And just go, oh, I'll only buy it if I need it. But frankly, our statistics show that most PMP students actually struggle quite heavily on these Agile questions. That's why we do offer the Agile Booster course at this time. Okay. Siddhartha asks, does the booster course give additional contact hours? Yes, it does. 22.5 additional contact hours that you can claim for the Agile Booster course. All right, and with this out of the way, let me once again remind you that you can get the Agile Booster course at pm-prepcast.com/booster. And let me close with this here. General tip would be to have a good knowledge of Agile and Scrum methodologies. Again, you know, this lesson learned actually is a perfect representation of what we find, right? Agile and Scrum methodologies, that's where people are struggling in the Agile set, and then also the roles and responsibilities for the players within the team. That's really where we see people struggling. So this is a perfect closing slide here for our Agile Booster Course launch. All right. Thank you, everybody. Again, the URL is pm-prepcast.com/booster. In case you haven't seen it, here it is again. There you go, pm-prepcast.com/booster. Thank you so much for joining me today. Until next time.